Oh, welcome.
I was having some coffee and they said you've got a panel to do. So forgive me for being
No.
It seems rather rude to be here with coffee, but I'll put it down.
We're all good.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm good, thank you. Very good.
Have you visited Austin before?
No, I haven't, but I've really enjoyed it. I went to 6th Street last night. Because I love music, and it was great because every single bar and restaurant had a really good band playing in it. So that was really exciting. And also, I don't drink, so it was quite safe. For myself.
We've been letting our guests know that the motto here is keep Austin weird. That's their thing, right?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. And you're keeping up there. Very well.
So we've been asking our guests, how do you keep it weird? Like, what's weird about you? We asked David this. He came up with, what was it, a peanut butter and sausage sandwich. That's his thing with butter. That was his thing. What's kind of weird. So it doesn't have to be food, but like, what's something that's a little bit, off for you?
A little bit weird.
A little bit weird. Anything?
I don't think I'm weird at all. Very, very normal. What's weird about me? I like to arrange things. I like to make sure that.
You like OCD type of range thing?
No,
or?
I'm not there yet.
Okay. You're smart. You're working your way up.
Heading in that direction. But yeah, I like to make sure everything's. My clothes are all ready before I go to bed for the next day.
Oh, okay.
So stuff like that.
Do you lay it
that
out?
Weird? No. I feel as if I'm a disappointment. I'm not weird enough. I can't tell you how weird I really am.
Oh, come on.
Well, that's private.
Well, they're really popular. Food's really popular here in Austin, obviously. What's your sort of go-to comfort food that you like to? What do you while you're here?
I love lasagna. I think because I'm Italian. I love pasta. So that's if my last meal would be lasagna.
Oh, nice lasagna. All right on.
Some lasagna fans. It's not that popular, I guess. Don't be lasagna, of course.
I had some last night.
So, the role of Doctor Who has been incredibly iconic. It's like, I mean, what other properties have spanned 50 plus years and has literally touched so many people's lives all around the world? But before all that, was it for yourself when you were younger? Were you did you start out aspiring at a young age to want to be an actor?
I wasn't sure that I wanted to be an actor. I think I was just always very interested in watching TV. I actually watched TV a lot, and then I became interested in how it was made. And my mother said that when I was little, I made a little television studio out of a shoebox. And in fact, it was so long. I apparently had little drawings of the Beatles in it because at that time the Beatles were just new and they were on TV. So I was obviously interested in not just in what was on TV but how it was made. So I think that was kind of the direction I was moving in, was thinking, well, I want to be part of that world. But then gradually it just began to dawn on me that I wanted to get dressed up and shout. And obviously that's being an actor, so I headed in that direction.
When did music come into your life?
Music, no, my father played the piano, and his brother, my uncle, played the guitar, and his other brother, my other uncle, played the accordion.
Wow.
And then in those days, people sang, when they had parties and stuff like that. So I grew up with this little ready-made band, and at family occasions they would play. I mean, they weren't great, but they were fun, and everyone would sing songs, and so that was really there from the start.
Guitar was your first choice, or was there other instruments?
I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't really start playing guitar until my teens. Okay. But I'm not really. I think people have got the wrong impression that because the Doctor can play a guitar terribly well, that I can't really. I just have a go at it. And then sometimes when we film, a little guitar pixie is parachuted in later, who makes it sound. But yeah, no. And when I was 17, I went off and worked in a bar to save up the money to buy a really good guitar, which I did. And yeah, to just kept playing it since then. But never really, I was in the band and stuff like that, we had fun, but yeah, but we never really, I stopped doing it after a while to concentrate on acting. Yeah.
We always like to ask our guests too about taking the risk to become an actor. It's like, it is scary and it's like very difficult. Did you grow up in an environment where your parents and family were very supportive of your decision to be an actor?
Well, they weren't unsupportive, but they didn't really know anybody in that world. I mean, it's very difficult when you're, the parent of a child growing up in, Glasgow, and the child says, "I want to be an actor," and you don't know any actors, and you don't know how you can get that child from just that interest to being a professional. So I think it was quite daunting for them. I think they always wanted me really they thought I should become an art teacher because I had always been able to draw. And I think that was clearer for them. They could see the drawings, and so they could see that there was a kind of career path. But whereas with acting, it's difficult to visualize how that child is going to make a success of that. And it is a big risk. But they were fantastic. They encouraged me in absolutely everything. And it was a great environment to grow up in.
Well, you've played in so many different roles. The Doctor Who is prolific. What was and of course, because it's the UK and it seems like everywhere, it impacts everywhere around the world, but particularly in the UK. What was your experience like growing up with Doctor Who? Like, was it something that you were always around? Was it something that you were very intentional with connecting with at a young age? Like, what was your sort of experience with Doctor Who?
Well, Doctor Who was just, sort of always in my life. Although there were some years when it wasn't because it didn't exist. But it started, I think, when I was about 6, and it would have been on because it was not on late at night. It was on, 5:30 in the afternoon. But by that time in Scotland, it was as dark as night. So I always kind of remember it being on late at night, and it was just a magical thing. I just used to watch it and be transported to these other worlds, and I loved the Doctor, the Doctors. I loved the TARDIS, and they just sort of they carried my imagination away, and so it was just always there. And it was a very popular show in the UK. But you've got to remember that in those days things were not as hysterical as they are now, and things did not become enormous brands, and they were just shows that people tuned into and enjoyed, and were not designed to be watched 50 years later. They didn't have the money. And that was the thing that I loved about it, was that I could see that there was imagination at work. It's a very creative show. But obviously when you look at it now and you see some of those old ones, they're really, really struggling.
A lot of imagination.
It's a lot of imagination, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's what it's all about, is trying to, they make wonderful things out of nothing. And I also think as an actor, when I became a Doctor Who, it made me respect even more all the people who had played the role before, because I came into it at a period when we sort of had enough money. We don't have a huge amount of money, but we had enough money to make things look good. Occasionally you would walk in and something would look not quite as cosmic as you had hoped. And those actors had to face that all the time. But you never, for a moment, saw them lose the truth of it. They always convinced you utterly that they were in that world, they were on that strange planet, and they were having that experience. I just thought that's really acting. If you can, make the impossible appear to be believable when in fact you're faced with a cardboard spaceship or a rubber monster that's falling to pieces or whatever.
Well, your first encounter with Doctor Who was your role and cameo with the Matt Smith episode.
Yeah.
At what point was? I'm sorry. David Tennant, I'm sorry. You gotta be careful with this crowd. You gotta be careful with this crowd. The David Tennant episode. But at what point was the possibility of playing the role as a doctor become realistic for you?
It was never in my head, and it was never raised. I was delighted to be offered that job, which was to be in the Fires of Pompeii with David. And I just thought that would be my only involvement with Doctor Who. I didn't really know anybody in the production crew, and everyone seemed about 11 years old compared to me. And I went along and just had a brilliant time. David was absolutely lovely and was delightful to work with, and showed me around, showed me the TARDIS and all that. It was very exciting. And I thought that would be it. And I thought, well, that's great. I had a chance to be in that show, which I loved. And nobody ever really discussed the possibility of it, but there was one rather strange thing that happened, which was that Mark Gatiss was making an Adventure in Time and Space, which is a program that they made about the making of the show originally in 1963. And they were filming it, and he knew I was a big fan, and he said, why don't you come and visit this, why don't you come to the studio and see, this was in London, they were shooting it in London, because we've got a TARDIS, and we've got an old style TARDIS, and we've got Daleks and stuff, and he knew I'd love all that stuff. So I went down to the studio and had a great day. Met David Bradley, who was playing, I felt like I was meeting Doctor Who,
Brilliant.
you know, because that was,
totally.
but remember, I'm nothing to do. I don't think anything's going to happen to me, and I'm ever going to have anything to do with Doctor Who. And Mark said to me, "What would you say if they asked you to be
Interesting.
Doctor Who?" And I said, I think that ship sailed. I said, I think he's generally played by much younger people now. I said, I don't know. And I just thought that was an odd question to be asked.
Feeling it out a little bit.
And then I said, can I get my photograph taken with, there was a TARDIS console. I said, and he said, so I got my photograph taken next to the console. And as I got my photograph taken, somebody else appeared to take my picture, and somebody else appeared to take my picture, and there was a whole pile of people.
And then makeup came out.
Yeah. And it was only like, I thought, this is all just rather odd. But I think they were sort of checking me out to see whether or not I was interested. As if you had to go through all that.
Well, we have some great fan questions for you. Before we get to that, it feels like just yesterday when you started the role, and does it feel like it went by in a blink? Does it feel like they went by quickly for you?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but it feels like decades. I can't really believe. I mean, I actually finished filming in August of last year, but that feels like years ago, eons ago. But it was great. It's not. It's because it's such a dense and compressed experience, and your life changes.
How do you feel like you've changed as an actor from the experience from beginning to end?
My hair's got whiter. I've got more wrinkles. I've got older.
The TARDIS has that effect on people.
I think it's great for you as an actor because it's a very pressurized job, and you have to work every day, and you're literally in every scene, and you have to keep delivering, and you also have to be disciplined. You have to be able to not be a fanboy, and just actually do the work that is necessary to get 13 episodes through the door in a year.
Well, let's go to our fans here. If you want to start on the mic, introduce yourself, and ask any question.
Hi, Peter.
Hello, nice to see you again.
Yeah, same here. I'm Suzanne. I'm from Phoenix, and the question I wanted to ask was, you brought it up earlier about the licensing and all the stuff out there for Doctor Who now. obviously when you're doing the thick of it in other shows, merchandising wasn't such a big thing back in the day. But now it's just exploded with Doctor Who. And when you became the Doctor and everything, and your face was just all over everything, I mean, t-shirts and whatnot, what was it like over in London to see yourself like everywhere on the side of a bus and whatnot, and just realizing you're the Doctor, and everybody sees your face everywhere around town?
Well, it's quite a shock, you know, to see yourself all over the place. But you never lose that thing of going, saying, "Oh, I look terrible," you know, I look this way, I look there, and. But the funniest thing I remember was when I used to, where I live in London, there's a news vendor. What do you call it? With someone who sells newspapers and a newsstand. So there's a newsstand, and I go to the newsstand every day. And the man who runs it's lovely, but we just say good morning and stuff. And then I went down to the newsstand to buy my morning newspaper, and he has all the newspapers laid out. Every single one of those newspapers had my photograph on the cover, and I asked for my newspaper. I said, "There you go." He never mentioned it. I thought that was great. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We have a whole litter of little doctors over here.
Fezzes,
so,
yes,
yeah,
look at those.
for you. So,
Flurry of fezzes.
all right, go ahead. You might have to reach up for that microphone if you can. You might pull it down. You could just pull it forward towards you and then pull it down. There you go. All right.
I actually wanted to know who your favorite villain from Doctor Who was.
My favourite villain is, well, I love Missy. I think she's wonderful, and Michelle, who plays her, is absolutely brilliant and does it fantastically. And she's going to be in Sabrina the Teenage Witch when it comes out. It should be fantastic. I also love the Master, you know, John Sim and Roger Delgado. Davros, I think, is pretty special. You know, and it's wonderful. When I did, I had a couple of episodes where I spent a lot of time with Davros, with Julian Bleach, who's a wonderful actor who plays him. Julian, if he was here, I wouldn't know who he was because I've never seen his face. I've only ever seen him with the Davros makeup on because he stays in there because it's so difficult to get off. So he just stays in there all day. And he speaks like that also. So I'd love to meet him. So he's great.
Thank you.
And this is Miles.
Hello.
I'm Miles.
Hi, Miles.
Why did you grow your hair out at the end of...
Why did I grow it out? It just keeps growing. There's no particular, so that's just the direction it keeps going, and you reach a certain age when you're just very happy that it's still there. So I just encourage it to keep going.
Thank
But I
you.
was lucky I didn't do a fourth season because it would have been gigantic. It would have been a monster in itself.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Kai, and
Hi,
my
Kai.
question for you is, what is your favorite Doctor besides number 12?
I think Jodie's pretty exciting. I think I think she'll be amazing.
Hi, my name is Zoe and I'm from here in Austin, Texas.
Hi, Zoe.
My question for you is, how did you feel on the first and last days on set?
Oh, good question.
The first day I was very nervous. It all seemed gigantic. We were filming. Well, there's two first days. There was the first day with Matt when we did the regeneration, and Matt's absolutely fantastic, and it was wonderful to be with him, and he was so kind to me. So that was officially my first day, but my official first day of filming my own season was we filmed the scene where the TARDIS had landed on the banks of the Thames in Deep Breath, and that was all in a studio designed by the absolutely wonderful Michael Pickwood, who sadly died about 2 weeks ago, who did incredible work on Doctor Who, and that was a case in point, because you would walk into, that's a studio, that's a studio, and it looks like a corner of the Thames in Victorian London. He built that, and you walked into that, and it actually smelled of water, the smell of the river, and so that was. So the set, that's very, sort of intimidating to see this huge set, and there seems to be hundreds of people, and they're all looking at you, and they're waiting for you to come out. And then they shut you in the TARDIS, and you have to emerge, and you think, I'll go in there and I'll gather myself, because they shut you in, and there's some props bloke standing in there with a light bulb or something, or some smoke. He had a smoke machine. So you weren't even alone in the TARDIS, sort of trying to. You were saying good morning to the bloke and all that stuff. And, so I was scared, really scared. And then you get on with it, and it's just so much fun that that just carries you away. And when I finished, well, you never really finish with Doctor Who, So it was sad. But not as sad as you think it is, because you never leave.
Interesting. For the look of the 12th Doctor, was that something that was fairly decided early on, or did you get a chance to kind of be involved in that process as well?
Oh God, the whole thing, the whole costume thing is just a nightmare. Just people are so uptight about it, and it's so important, and it's so.
I can't think of another character that just has so much. There's so much emotion around the wardrobe.
Yeah. I thought. Well, I sort of thought I had an idea what I wanted to do, but I thought, well, I'm not going to close any doors. If somebody else has got a better idea, let's do that, or at least let's try it on and see what it looks like. But of course, what that means is, it's quite fun dressing up, because you get taken to, like, in London there are these very old costume houses which are full of costumes going back, from Gainsborough movies and Ealing movies and all that stuff. And they have every possible conceivable costume you can think of. And they basically say, well, start dressing up, and you just start trying stuff on, and it's fun for about an hour, and then you want to just throw yourself under a bus, because it's like in a costume of your choice. But I just did it. I just kept trying, and of course everybody keeps going. I say everybody. There seems to be like hundreds of people, and of course when you're just new, you don't know who's really in charge. And also there is a kind of pressure to sort of do something colourful and bright that can be turned into an action figure very quickly and sold. And I thought that wasn't that's not the right direction to go in. It should be the other way around. So I tried everything on and didn't like it, but kept trying to edge it towards what I wanted. Gradually making it blacker and darker and starker, and eventually got there till I'd exhausted everybody. Because people do come in and say, "Oh, why don't you try a scarf?" Like nobody's ever done that. It'd be great if you wore a scarf. All right, okay. But I also was very lucky. I knew Paul Smith, who's a very celebrated designer in the UK, and I spoke to him about it, and he pointed me in a certain direction, and we got there in the end. But it's a constant thing. I mean, they're constant. That's why I end up with so many costumes, because they won't leave it alone. People keep saying, "Oh, let's try this thing. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this."
Right. Okay. Hi. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carmen, and I'm from the Passes. My question was, what's your favorite role in all of your career?
My favorite role? Excuse me. Well, I've played a lot of fun roles. Doctor Who is great, but that's very special. I just did a thing. I did an adaptation of David Copperfield, the Dickens novel, and I played Mr. Micawber, who's usually played by a portly gentleman. But in this case, because we were doing it as a fairly realistic Victorian sort of recreation, we're all pretty lean and hungry. So I loved playing that part. I haven't done any Dickens before, and I just loved playing Mr. Micawber. I thought he was a brilliant, and Armando Iannucci, who directed and wrote that with Simon Blackwell. I think they're just brilliant people to work with, and he had such a great vision for it all. And I loved that character. So I'm very lucky that the last character I played was my favourite one. And Doctor Who obviously is a very, very special place in my heart. Hearts.
Hello.
Hey. I'm Ainsley.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, as an actor, when you pick up a character, you kind of make it your own. You kind of add things to it that aren't like in the script. Sometimes it never even comes up like in the performance. But I was wondering what your favorite one with the Doctor was. What was your favorite thing that you just kind of added on?
We didn't really do a great. I mean, the script was so great. I think Stephen Moffat's just an incredible writer, and there was very little need to add stuff to it. And I actually don't think it's a great habit to get into, anyway, because your job is really to bring the script to life, not to add cookie little bits that you think are. Improve it, because most of the time they don't. They get cut out. Most of the things you add get cut out. Is the truth, But we did say there were things. Stephen has a habit of, if you say something in real life, it will appear in a script. The Doctor will say something that maybe you might have said. And in fact, in my last speech, when I said that you wouldn't be able to pronounce the Doctor's name, and that you couldn't say it, that it was a frequency that could only be heard by certain people, particularly children, if the stars were in the right place, and etc. Was because at one of these Q&As, someone had asked me. A boy asked me what the Doctor's name was. So I made up that explanation. And then Stephen improved it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, look at this.
Look at this.
Good looking.
Very cool with your Gibson SG.
Oh yeah.
Very cool. Can you play that thing?
I played for you in Dallas a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, of course you did. Yeah. Walk to Limits, yeah. I haven't got my specs on, I can't see it.
I haven't gotten much better.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Okay, my question is, so I'm a musician, so I have to know. So, all right, imagine this. You're on a deserted island, and it's just you. But you get to keep 5 albums with you. You only get 5. What are your deserted island albums?
Unfortunately, you don't get a record player.
No.
You just get to look at the album art. You don't get to listen to it.
Now the album cover becomes very important.
5 albums. That's really. I don't know. I think I'd have. I change, because I listen to things. I change. Sometimes I'm really into this. I'm really into that one. Hunky Dory, I would have, which I love. I would have Abbey Road. I'd have the Freewheeling Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
I would have Harvest by Neil Young. I'd have. These aren't very popular choices, are they? What should I have? Lady Gaga. No, we're talking. No, I'm not going to say any more because it just makes me sound really old. So that's 3 we're getting on with. Great question.
Thank you. I do have a sort of other question. So I played for you a couple of years ago. I was wondering if you could play for us.
Well, I don't know. What would you like me to play?
Whatever you want.
I'll play a little bit then, okay.
Bring it up.
I'm okay with this.
He's got an amp. He's ready to go here.
There's no squirrel. There's no squirrel.
Yeah.
We get one musical request a panel, so she used it up, people. So.
What? Yeah, I've got some coffee here. I think
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Natasha. First off, welcome to Austin. My question is, which speech from your time being a doctor were you most proud of?
Oh, well, I had so many wonderful ones. And you know, people always ask you what your favorite thing is. And I don't like to pick anything out because, you know, so many of them are so good. And then you forget that another one that comes into your head after you've been asked the question and you think, oh, I should have said that or whatever. But the one that I think is quite special is there's a speech in Listen about fear is a superpower. And it's become very special to me because, well, first of all, it was the first big speech really that I had that I think reflected the doctor that I was playing. But also I've found, again, coming to conventions, a lot of people have come to me and shared with me their experiences where sometimes they've been able to use that speech to help them, but in quite significant and challenging sort of situations where I you know, when I had one lady whose kids were going through a lot of problems and had to have a lot of medical procedures, which clearly they were concerned about, but they all knew that speech and they would recite that speech before they went into the procedures, and I thought that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Peter, we only have like a